Good day, friends. Welcome to Gord's Poetry Show number 39, which I might call the Fall Beer Update. I'm not sure yet. I'm still kind of working on it. But I'm finishing off the remains of my Warka Ale from Poland. Rather a good brew, I might add. And it is afternoon on a Sunday, so it is legitimate and not decadent. The American poet C.K. Williams. Can't believe I didn't know about him before. He's been publishing forever. God, I don't know, at least 40 to 50 years. Poetry, translations, essays, you name it, he's done it. No novels, I see. Memoir, though. He does these, at least he does them now. The most recent book, All at Once, is nifty little prose poems, some of them not so little. Sort of narrative in nature. And always intriguing, sometimes very funny, and bemused, philosophical, questing. And did I say witty? I think I said witty. Here's one called Why. I've been trying to figure out why it should be that the thing that made me happiest on a day when I attended an event in New York at which I saw some old friends plus a few people I know only slightly, but in whose company I was flattered and stimulated to be, should have been a girl 8 or so and a woman who could have been 100, who both offered me the same fond smile in the subway on the way back home. The girl was playing some sort of game with her mother in a space they were pretending was a stage behind a stairway on the subway platform. As the mother watched, the girl struck a pose the way models do in magazines, one hand on a jutting hip, the other lifted and cocked back from the wrists, and she manifested the same sexy, inviting but distant and unapproachable air real models do. She was smiling good-naturedly at her mother. They both had long, light hair. And when she saw me watching, she smiled with the same frank openness at me. The freshness of her face, the adult attitude of her body, and its lithe childishness made her extraordinarily endearing. When the mother noticed, she looked over at me and smiled too. She had as radiant a smile as did her daughter, which made the moment even more gratifying. I came upon the old woman at the bottom of an escalator when I got off at my stop. She was African American, light-skinned, wore bright red lipstick, a red beret, and a black jacket shining with sequins, and though so elderly, was still remarkably attractive. Her body was bent with osteoporosis, though she was very short. She had to crane her neck to look up at me. She moved laboriously. When I stepped back from the bottom of the escalator and indicated she should get on ahead of me, she looked up at me, moved closer, and smiled the same unconditional, flirty smile the little girl had such a short while before. When I smiled back at her, I was really smiling at them both, or all three, the girl, the mother, and this woman who could have been the mother of us all. Precious day. Number of pieces about his wife, or maybe newish wife, Catherine. Section called Catherine's Laughter. What an intriguing and fascinating character she must be. Here's one called Jules. Catherine and I, a few days after we met, are taking a walk on one of the fanciest, most upscale streets in Paris. We pass by the most elegant of all the jewelry stores. Money all but drips from the facade. I once had a bracelet from there, Catherine remarks. Where is it now? I ask her. I sold it to pay for my divorce. Who gave it to you? I ask. Your ex-husband? No. Who then? An admirer. An admirer? She'd never say who. I try, oh, this was called jealousy, by the way. I try, without immediately laughing aloud, to consider seriously the proposition that Catherine might be jealous of me. I make a little psychic drama in which I'm in conversation with someone, anyone, it doesn't matter, and that she's looking across at me and smouldering, quavering, dissolving with anxiety and fret. Utterly impossible. She couldn't know, couldn't suspect, couldn't have the wildest imagination of what it would be like. Here's what it's like. I'm watching her at a party, say a restaurant, a gallery, conversing with another man, someone she evidently admires, perhaps feels affection for, perhaps, I think, incipient love for, sexual passion for. Of course I keep my mouth clamped, sealed, hammered, nailed, screwed shut. When I consider what to do next, the only solution I can posit is to become inanimate, and the shortest route to that would be to become one with the chair in which I shit. Whoa! Sit! Excuse me. My all at once beloved chair. Its back is almost precisely the length of my spine, and its seat, think, has more legs than I have. What a relief! I am the chair that holds me up. I am chair. But now an army of ravenous invisible birds approaches the foot of the cherished chair to harvest the crumbs of my psyche as it disintegrates and dissolves. Secret birds, their eyes shine like the nails of a nurse preparing you for your operation. Then the crumbs are gone, devoured, there's nothing left of me, psyche, body, brain, and so the birds, in an anesthetizing, gleaming shudder, fly away. It goes on. I wait, I watch, I count. My heart beats, my brain waves, but the chair is growing tired. It bends one leg, then another. My chair, poor chair, doesn't even have eyelids to swing down like shutters. Or do I mean shudders? What do I mean? I forget what I might mean, or what anything might mean. I find I envy now the placid, stupid four-square tables, then the lamps that perch on them, and burn, if they desire all the endless nights. Like them I burn, I watch with something like a mighty winch. I haul my eyes agape and watch. There are many more fine prose poems in this book. We will get back to them another time. We have many poems to read from many other books. A newish Canadian poet, at least new to me, Madhur Anand, her new book, A New Index for Predicting Catastrophes. Interesting point. Intriguing poet to me. Using scientific language and just concepts. Here's one called We're Not Worried. Danish astronomers have just discovered sugar, simple molecules of glycohaldehyde, did I get that right, floating in the gas around a young sun-like star 400 light years away. The molecules are falling toward a binary star, a system of two bodies, one primary, one companion, orbiting about a common center of mass. This space sugar, they think, helps replicate DNA. We too orbit. Tonight it's ice cream at the boathouse tea room, noticing where the speed river's melting, and, more urgently, the sides of cones. We choose chocolate and vanilla, measure the deviations. An old lady is feeding geese. Astronauts wanted Neapolitan for their trips to the moon. Freeze-dried prototypes proved impractical. Crumbs were dangerous to microgravity, like bird parts in plane engines. Now they sell it at the NASA gift shop, so we can all travel to outer space too. There are more choices than stars. Scientists are making breakthroughs in slowing down melt, though can't make it healthy. You can't take sugar out because of the role it plays. The chemical structure girds against dismantlement. Oh. Well, one of those mysterious pauses for about 30 seconds. I don't know what happened. Maybe I need a new computer. Laurence Hutchman, Canadian poet. We've read from him quite recently. Here's yet another new book by him, Personal Encounters, poems about Irving Layton, Leonard Cohen, John Newlove, and more. At the reading of Irving Layton, you emerged with a swagger into the light of the stage in jacket and black turtleneck. Your belly beveled with experience, your hair beaming silver, radiating its own light. Your voice was a rich, full bass as you savored the syllables, and the poem leapt from the page, caught and held us in its attention. I discovered your poem, The Birth of Tragedy, in a Blue High School poetry anthology, where you celebrate the poem as a pool reflecting love, power, the huzzah of battle. You showed us what a poet could do in A Tall Man Executes a Jig, when you portrayed sculptors, historians, and philosophers, their incompleteness on the stage of our lives. Afterwards, I talked to you. You spoke of what it takes to be a poet, that it is the role of the poet to speak out against the injustice of the world, that it is the role of the poet to celebrate love in all its forms. And you taught us to write about this country with a dynamic, energizing will, a Dionysian energy. There was no one like you. Your lovers were naked with desires real as flesh. Your love was a viva in Paris when you were tapping out poems on her thigh. Love was the grief for your wild, mad mother. After the reading, I ran into the crisp autumn night in London. The moon was never more clear, shining over the rippling, austere Thames. Montreal Troubadour for Leonard Cohen. The ice was almost out of the river as I drove down the St. John Valley with spring in the air, feeling that I would meet you after the concert. What was it about your voice that I heard in your book of poems? The black book with its gold lettering looking like a treasure box. The room became a microcosm of the world. The bed became a wafer, an altar of moonlight, and your Suzanne spoke of the body of wisdom and the mind. There was something in the vulnerable sensitivity of your soul that created the simplest and most profound scenarios. For what you did was death-defying, high above on that lonely tightrope of our lives. As I struggled to survive the life of high school, you were the poet whose words I consumed like a spiritual bread and wine, while listening to your halting, haunting voice. You made me begin to feel the possibilities of the naked human body. You were my troubadour of Montreal. In the lineup at Harbour Station, I mentioned to a woman who owns an art gallery in St. John that Louis Dudek published Leonard Cohen's first book, and that the last book he published was mine. I arrived at the concert just in time and took my seat 25 feet from the stage. There you emerged with your fedora and sang. You sang on your knees to the hushed audience, and slowly the arena became a temple. I learned that you were staying at the Delta Hotel. In the morning I asked a chambermaid, "Have you seen Leonard Cohen?" She looked at me uncomprehendingly. "No. Does he work here?" Later at the reception desk I noticed a man with a beret or an Irish cap and realized it was you, Leonard. I told you the story about the chambermaid. "That's good, good," you said, placing your hand on my shoulder, and we laughed. Drinking with John not John Ashbery. Drinking with John Newlove in the Westbury Hotel. I am sloppy today. In the Westbury Hotel, I sit at the bar until it becomes a boat, holding gold railings, looking out onto the troubled seas, the golden coasts, the aqua glass twilight in its currents. We are here sipping the stories between the beer and the silence. A sailor keeps serving us drinks, while around the world grows green as a jungle or a giant aquarium. You speak of how hard it is to live fighting the bottle, to find the truths and to keep them. Sitting at the edge of the bar in the darkness of Conrad's night, you breathe with emotion, words bitten in the mouth, cool on the tongue, as we speak of the walls of existence, which sometimes remain like pieces of a poem we do not want to write. Thank you, Laurence. Canadian poet Karen Solie has a new book, The Road In is Not the Same Road Out. Always enjoyed Karen's poems. Your news hour is now 2 hours. Gratitude toward the houseplants, shame for what they must endure. Of particular concern, the azalea, flowering like the gestures and cries of someone off the trail who sees a helicopter. A long cold night is coming on. Is it dying or being killed? When I'm 100% on what's happening, there's still that niggling 5. Too much water, neglect, information. Decisions made at the executive level. Science tells us plants emit signatures and responses on yet another frequency we cannot hear. That's all we need. When little, we were told our heads were in the clouds. Now we suspect the opposite. One of my favorite Canadian artists is Jack Chambers. Here's a poem dedicated to him. Interior. Neither question nor assertion makes sense when truth is a tone of voice. As if I were a wall, a former life walks through me. Each modest architectural feature an anthology of meanings to which paint has been applied. They don't retain traces. That's in thinking. One would do well to adopt a chemically pure standpoint of appraisal, to lay down the repairs and cleaning cloths, to set aside the plan. There is no plan. As object of exchange and economic indicator, it entertains no hopes for us, is escorted by its infestations back to ground. Wind plays through its failings. Basement cells divide toward the water table. The roof maintains no argument with rain, with shortcuts in construction. The storm's many elements as the one true storm. Evergreens, off-street parking, clouds at dusk, like clouds in Western art. The gardener, after a time, feels the garden belongs to him. Familiar objects extend his spirit. A malady expressed by drowsiness. Wind moves likewise the feather and the ash. You are the spirits, you are the dust. Take them with you into the astonishing night, alien to us both. Well, thank you, Karen. That was good. Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver has a new book of poems, Blue Horses. And I'm just as impressed with it as any other book of hers I've read. Little Crazy Love Song. Little Crazy Love Song. I don't want eventual, I want soon. It's 5 a.m., it's noon. It's dusk falling to dark. I listen to music. I eat up a few wild poems while time creeps along as though it's got all day. This is what I have, the dull hangover of waiting, the blush of my heart on the damp grass, the flower-faced moon. A gull broods on the shore where a moment ago there were two. Softly my hand fondles my left hand, as though it were you. I woke, and crept like a cat on silent feet about my own house, to look at you while you were sleeping, your hair sprayed on the pillow, your eyes closed, your body safe and solitary, and my doors shut for your safety and your comfort. I did this thinking I was intruding, yet wanting to see the most beautiful thing that has ever been in my house. The mangroves. As I said before, I am living now in a warm place, surrounded by mangroves. Mostly I walk beside them. They discourage entrance. The black oaks and the pines of my northern home are in my heart, even as I hear them whisper, "Listen, we are trees too." Okay, I'm trying. They certainly put on an endless performance of leaves. Admiring is easy, but affinity, that does take some time. So many and so leggy, and all of them rising as if attempting to escape this world, which, don't they know it, can't be done. Are you trying to fly, or what? I ask, and they answer back, we are what we are, you are what you are. Love us if you can. Watering the stones. Every summer I gather a few stones from the beach and keep them in a glass bowl. Now and again I cover them with water, and they drink. There's no question about this. I put tin foil over the bowl tightly, yet the water disappears. This doesn't mean we ever have a conversation, or that they have the kind of feelings we do, yet it might mean something. Whatever the stones are, they don't lie in the water and do nothing. Some of my friends refuse to believe it happens, even though they've seen it. But a few others, I've seen them walking down the beach holding a few stones, and they now look at them rather more closely. Once in a while, I swear, I've even heard one or two of them saying, "Hello," which, I think, does no harm to anyone or anything. Does it? On meditating. On meditating, sort of. Meditation, so I've heard, is best accomplished if you entertain a certain strict posture. Frankly, I prefer just to lounge under the tree. So why should I think I could ever be successful? Some days I fall asleep, or land in that even better place, half asleep, where the world, spring, summer, autumn, winter, flies through my mind in its hardy ascent and its uncompromising descent. So I lie just like that, while distance and time reveal their true attitudes. They never heard of me, and never will, or ever need to. Of course I wake up finally thinking, how wonderful to be who I am, made out of earth and water. My own thoughts, my own fingerprints, all that glorious temporary stuff. Thank you, Mary Oliver. Once again. Cassidy McFadzean, young Canadian poet. Perhaps her first book, I'm not sure. Hacker Packer. Rodin's muses surround him. There's a name we recognize. Mr. Rodin, the sculptor. Window seated, I watch men in yellow vests lay metal ribbing across the garden. Their hands are as intimate as the steel point that mapped the faces of the bronze woman inside this room. The one closest to me crouches. What am I but a woman on my knees, breasts bare? This one's elbow juts out of stone clouds. We glance into her marble pond and lose track of which side reflects our world. Everything hard becomes soft. See now, Francesca's skin, polished milk, implores us to reach out and touch the curves of her body. We've nearly forgotten their chiseled stone. Ariadne's fingers figure larger than my own. Her head leans on her hand. She smells the sawdust we smell. Plaster hung in his workshop. We know it well. The finished form, crude in filtered light, shadows at her ribs. The devil's hand cradles man. But the hand that sculpted my lips freed me from my marble, then abandoned me. My God didn't lose interest. He never had any. His chisel marks, exposed or erased, asked the stone to reach back out, an ambivalent, sculpted shrug. A wax mask behind a sheet of glass stares back at the sunken, sightless face. You gave me speech. Talking to that quiet part inside myself becomes me, yes, and makes me not less alone, less lonely. Mark Abley, new and selected poems, The Tongues of Earth. A View of Delft. A View of Delft. Referring, of course, to the famous Vermeer painting. The town blew up in 1654, killing several friends and his wife's relations and his painting master. A powder magazine exploded without warning, for secret reasons or perhaps a function of the recent war or a prospect of the one to come. All over Delft, the dogs and birds kept silent for a minute, as though respectful of the dead or shocked at the ashen light above. The trees had lost their yellow leaves by the time the fires burnt out and the moon appeared in blue. Its filmy image in the river was enough to illuminate parts of bodies, and the furniture that had not sunk. His wife was buying cheese and fish in the market. She stumbled home with a splinter of oak embedded in her cheek, the remnant of a flying stall. They were two of the lucky. In a garret he had been examining a Spanish painting, two remorseful saints and a stubbled Christ who fell from his arms to the checkered floor. How had this come to pass? A state inquiry found nothing, and its many citizens, kept in the dark, nurtured a dark suspicion they feared to speak aloud. The ruins became a coy attraction for outsiders, grateful to God that such a calamity had left them free to go their own ways unhindered by conscience or the need to build. In June he wandered through the snarled remains, watching a pair of black and scarlet songbirds, foreign to the town in former days, nesting in the rubble of a merchant's wall. A day of storm and sunlight, the ground as firm as risen bread. From across the river the houses were likely to stand forever. When will the next explosion come? That evening a girl he knew in one of those houses, its brickwork warm as milk, gave birth to an eyeless, armless boy, dying in a puddle of her own blood. The surgeons helpless and ashamed. Pablo Neruda. Famous poet, much translated. A late collection of his called The Yellow Heart, and a new translation by William O'Daly. Because I am unfinished and spindle-shaped, I had an understanding with needles, and then they were threading me and have never finished. That's why the love I give you, my woman, my needlewoman, coils in your ear moistened by the sea winds of Chilan, and uncoils in your eyes, letting sadnesses drift. I don't find pleasant the reason my fortune comes and goes. My vanity escorted me toward unheard heroics, to fish beneath the sand, to make pinholes in the air, to devour every bell. As it was, I did little or I did nothing, as it were, but enter for a guitar and leave singing with her. Another. From so often travelling in a region not charted in books, I grew accustomed to stubborn lands, where nobody ever asked me whether I liked lettuces or if I prefer mint, like the elephants devour. And from offering no answers, I have a yellow heart. That nice, truly lovely translation of The Yellow Heart, published by the one and only Copper Canyon Press. More from that another time. It's truly fine translation. So, another Gord's Poetry Show bites the dust. Or does it meet its end gladly? It takes off his hat, smiles, and says, Au revoir, mes amis. Au revoir.